soaring on his way to Medarot Survivor, but stopping ever so briefly in Medarot S in a collaborative double release before the launch of the Survivor game, is RPT00 Azuruler, with a kit of ranged pile, max Vulcan, power Napalm, light legs, and the leg ability of Detect, which buffs power and success when attacking a target with a lower evade than the user. Now, there's a number of rather unique things about Azuruler's design and his team that kind of set him apart. The first of which is obviously being based off that of like a Raptor fighter jet. But that is actually the first half of the game. Given that he will be releasing in Medarot Survivor, means that he does also have a very famous artist that was responsible for the creation. That artist is the legendary Naohiro Washio, who was responsible for a number of very iconic designs in the Gundam universe. Iron-Blooded Orphans, Seed, and a handful of others within that team. So it only makes sense with this knowledge that this is currently the closest we're going to get to a Gundam collaboration without actually getting a collaboration itself. Ranged Pile on the head part is a melee attribute skill that has a very unique kind of condition. That condition will change how it behaves relative to the distance that the target is from Azuruler. In this case, Ranged Pile that when attacking someone at close range gains damage plus and converts into an AoE, which attack all parts on the target. But if the target is farther away from Azuruler, it instead gets a success buff and gains piercing instead. So ultimately, compared to most other attacks where you can kind of damage clock them for consistency, Ranged Pile is something that kind of behaves all unto itself, but still exceptionally powerful and versatile all the same, as you're getting something, at least one different kind of perk, no matter if you're attacking someone at close range or attacking them long range. Max Vulcan on the right arm, and the first instance of this on a non-meta change type model and drive, is a shooting type of attack that'll gain double damage when attacking an enemy, and its armor is at 100%. Now, much like it is with, say, max shots, where you have to basically be scratched, Max Vulcan behaves pretty much the exact same way. However, instead of being a piercing attack, which is guaranteed to be breaking at least one thing on attacking the target, Max Vulcan is a scatter type of attack, which means it'll damage one part normally, and two others randomly for extra damage on top of that. And with a base power of almost 1300, doubling that to 2600 with the inclusion of Max Shot means it's going with Max Vulcan means it's going to be an exceptionally powerful attack when Azuruler gets to the plate. The only catch is if Max Vulcan takes any damage whatsoever and is not at 100% HP, then you miss out on that double damage modifier, and instead will be treating Max Vulcan like a regular Gatling attack. Power Napalm on the left arm is a gunpowder attribute skill, which is also a scatter type attack, which will damage one part normally and then two others randomly for extra damage. But compared to regular Napalm, Power Napalm also comes with a damage bonus. That is the instance where, as long as the user's legs remain intact, Power Napalm gets a times 1.5 damage bonus with the addition of some cooldown penalty. Great. So even with it being a scatter type of attack, it's going to be exceptionally powerful all the same. And with a base power of almost 2k, that means even by itself before the damage bonus, it's going to be pretty painful no matter which. Flight Legs means that Azuruler will have relatively solid coverage across most terrain, a trait of being exceptionally fast and exceedingly dodgy, also in terrain having very low armor. But for Flight Legs, that is basically par for the course. With a base mobility of 1122, Azuruler is most certainly off to an exceptional start when it comes to the speed, and especially on terrains where biped legs may not be the best possible choice, flight is most certainly the option. And an evade of 2312 is exceptionally good, as this means that he's going to be dodging or grazing a lot, and at this point almost literally anything, very casually, that's not already wickedly high on success. Now, this is of course bar any kind of no dodge penalties that he might use with himself. hit, but still worth using the same. However, in trade of this, he does have some relatively this stats at a melee resist of 691, shoot resist of 12. So while this means that trying to land a hit on him will be relatively difficult, if you do land a hit, it's going to be moderately. And it is also worth noting that because he is a flight type model, this does mean he is subject and weak to anyone by air. But again, that is assuming you can actually land a hit. As far as armor is concerned, though, he's actually not too bad, which is kind of a variance compared to most other flight legs. With a head HP of about 3,600, right arm at 34,900, left arm at 37,979, and legs just over 3,300. Despite the relatively light resist stats, he is actually pretty good in the armor. So he can kind of take some hits relatively well without anything breaking him. And the leg ability of Detect is also nice, as it uses his exceptionally high evade to his advantage. As the higher his evade is to the targets, he also gets a damage plus and a success plus bonus on top of that. Guarantee it's going to be very painful. All this being said, though, as a pure set score, I honestly have to rate Azuruler a pretty well-rounded 7 10. He's relatively synergetic unto himself and specializes definitely in collateral and scatter damage, 2 scatter type of attacks and 1 conditional mixed type, but still very powerful all the same. But both of them also have some rather interesting damage conditions. Range pile is a little hard to tell because it'll either be stronger in AoE or more successful in piercing, but Max Vulcan and Power Napalm are going to be the 2 really big parts that you use on it. But if you miss out on those conditions, full HP or still keeping legs, you're going to be missing out on a lot, and you're basically going to be converting down to just regular Gatling and Napalm. And the weakness of anti-air also does kind of tie into this, where any good hit from an anti-air attack will shoot this Raptor type down very, very. As mixed parts, I do have to rate him just a little bit higher at a 7.5 out of 10. Primarily for the fact that while he can certainly use his kit together very, very well with no real drawback or penalty, and he's more or less user-friendly right out of the box, being able to mix his parts up across most other builds is probably going to be the best way. Primarily for the instance of Max Vulcan as one example for that double damage with scatter, or even Power Napalm used to go that route. But flight legs with an exceptionally good mobility of over 1100 and the evade of over 2300 also is rather hard to skip out on. Because the higher your evade, the easier it is for you to get basically a free damage and success bonus from the Detect leg.